Hi, my name's Peter Knight. I'm an author, researcher, and interested in all things megalithic.
And you're also involved in the Stone Seeker tours. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
I am indeed, yes. I instigated Stone Seeker tours a number of years ago, and Stone Seeker isn't just tours, taking people for interactive trips around sites. They're also, it's my publishing house through which I publish my books through. But I wanted Stone Seeker tours to be something different, so we don't just roll up at sacred sites and say this is the archaeology and this is this, that and the other, and this is how they erected the stones, because that can often be a little bit flat. My tours have always been about interacting with a site, either observing sunrises or sunsets, or putting a dowsing rod in people's hands and see them get their first twitch and their eyes light up. Or shamanic drumming as well, which we do a lot of as well. So it's very much interaction with the landscape I'm interested in.
It's a living occupation, should we say, rather than a crusty observational one.
Oh, certainly. It's my calling, really. It's my dream. I'm so glad to kind of almost earn a living doing something I love. I mean, how blessed am I? It's just wonderful taking people out to a sacred landscape and trying to connect them with perhaps something we've lost.
Now, your dulcet tones are more from the Midlands than from the Avebury locale, just a tad. How did you end up down here?
Oh, blimey, yes. Well, it just shows how something positive can come from something negative, because I was very much, until I was 30, I was very much a normal Joe Bloggs, working 9 to 5 in Birmingham, and then I was made redundant, and this was like in the 80s, shock horror, and there was a lot of unemployment at that time, Thatcher's Britain and everything like that. So I'd always been interested in Dorset. I'd been on holiday to Dorset, so I thought, right, I've got time on my hands, I've got my redundancy money, let's go down to Dorset. And I'd always been interested in archaeology as a kid, and I started going around the Dorset sites just for something to do when I wasn't job hunting. And then almost at the same time a kind of spiritual genesis happened. So then I was going around these sacred sites but looking at them with new eyes, and it all came from that, a thing that people would see being, a negative thing, being made redundant. And if you like, the universe used that tool to totally change my life into a direction that I'd never even imagined before.
Wow. Yeah. What a lovely story. And of course, as they say, the rest is history. So
the rest is prehistory.
Prehistory. Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about your new book. What's it called and what's it about?
It is West Kennett Long Barrow, Landscape, Shamans and the Cosmos. And it's about West Kennett Long Barrow, of course. I've been going to Avebury, taking people there for tours for many years, and I'd also been going in there and doing some shamanic drumming, and I realised that no one had done a guidebook about West Kennett. I didn't intentionally set out to do that, but I wanted to find out information about West Kennett, and I realised there was hardly anything out there. We'd got like 3 books about Silbury Hill, Michael Dames's excellent books. We've had lots of books about Stonehenge, some people would say too many, and but no one had done anything about West Kennett. So I thought, right, let's get all the facts together, and I thought it might be a 50-page booklet originally, and 233 pages later, and again it set me down a whole era, a whole passage I wasn't suspecting, because I was just going to bring together all that had been known. But of course we started discovering new things, and we were being shown new things to show us that the site is still very much active today, and we had lots of astronomical discoveries. And it kind of grew, it took on a life of its own, really, as I'm told books often do.
I've heard similar said indeed. I was very captured by your presentation, and also when you talk about West Kennett, your excitement about the subject, which I think is infectious. But also, it's not necessarily, it's not a happy-go-lucky place. There is a somber aspect to it, but that nevertheless should be embraced too. Would you say?
Oh, exactly. Yes. I mean, I said during the talk originally, of course, it was normal people like you and I wouldn't perhaps even want to go inside West Kennett. The dark, pitch-black chambers originally, before they put the skylights in, would have been the realm of the ancestors, the realm of the shaman. And of course, there is this darker, not in a negative sense, but this deeper aspect of initiation and rites of passage, where people would have gone in there to sort themselves out, really, and also to test their mettle, and to perhaps show the ancestors that they were genuine in their pursuit, perhaps. So West Kennett isn't to be taken lightly. Although I take lots of tour groups in there on bright sunny days, we also take deeper Reiki and shamanic groups in there, and it can be very powerful in there. People you know, feel emotions coming up. They release all sorts of stuff. You know, they can reduce to tears in there. I've had, you know, spontaneous healing happen on many occasions in there when we've taken people in for our shamanic evenings. So yes, there's very much the deeper aspect to West Kennett Long Barrow, but I would suggest that has always been there.
No, I would agree entirely.
Yeah.
You managed to touch very briefly there on the skylights without growling, I noticed.
Yes. Don't get me started on those.
Well, I intend to do just that.
Okay.
So let's just talk about that for a moment. Obviously, English heritage, if it's not an oxymoron in itself, have busied themselves changing what was and has been for a great many years an edifice of our ancestors into something akin to a visitor centre.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's not entirely their fault that some of the stones are missing. A couple of the capstones were missing. Piggott found them missing when he rolled up in 1955 to do the excavations. But rather than replace them with sympathetic stone, like another similar-looking sarsen, which they never do because they're frightened that it'll be taken for some of the original sarsens. So I can understand that argument to a certain extent. Yeah. But instead of just covering them up, you know, in a more sympathetic way, like textured stone or kind of make it look a little bit stony, even though you can tell it's concrete, they decided for health and safety and so that tourists can come in to put 3 skylights in, and 2 of them are still open to the you know, to the open skies, and they also imported many tons of concrete and plaster to make a place safe. But when you're considering that none of it had collapsed in 5,000 years, why do we need to put concrete and plaster in to make it safe? The only ruinous parts of West Kennett Long Barrow were because farmers and other people took chunks of it away, like at Avebury, you know, in the you know, over many years. So other than that, West Kennett can stand on its own. So, but yes, it's this health and safety mentality, and but no, I would rather fill this. I'd fill the skylights in tomorrow, and then people would go into a dark chamber,
which
like
is
into
into
Newgrange. When you do the Newgrange tour, for a few moments he turns the lights off, and then you really get a feel of how dark it is. You go into Stony Littleton, and right at the back of the chamber, it's pitch black. So the only way you can get this effect today is why I do my shamanic drummings of an evening, because then the place does gradually go darker and darker and darker, and then you really get the full atmosphere and psychic effect, I think, of what was meant to be produced originally.
I think that's exactly right. Do you think that then that there is a way that we can help to educate those who would save us from ourselves to look after our monuments a little better?
How we can educate English heritage, do you mean? Well, it's a balancing act, isn't it? I mean, English heritage do have a responsibility to look after the site, whatever that includes. But yes, it's I have this thing about, you know, being responsibly using such sites. I mean, I go up there on a weekly basis, and I scrape wax off the stones, remove skylights and all sorts of ritual rubbish from inside. And so I can see how English heritage can get their backs up sometimes. I mean, you know, if the archaeology at the site was being so much damaged, and they wanted to fill it in, I actually would be there, the first in line, with a shovel in my hand, you know, because the site is more precious than, you know, than risk it being damaged by idiots. You know,
sure.
Some of the Cotswold stone, some of the dry stone walling has been taken away in the last few weeks.
Good,
you know, people want to take a little bit away for them. You know, and it's ironic that most of the damage done to West Kennett Long Barrow, either through things being left in there or stones taken away, is done by my fellow pagans, which is really ironic. I very rarely see a cigar end, a butt up there, or a you know, a can, a Coke can, or any normal rubbish. It's always what we call ritual rubbish, and I think that's really sad. So I'm trying to educate them. In my book there's a whole chapter about how to use the site responsibly. And I'm not a killjoy, because I take whole groups in there myself, but at the end of our nights there, we can be up there 2 or 3 hours, and at the end of that time we all go out and clear up after us, and anybody following us in would not know that anybody had been in there, because I think the ancestors and the spirits don't want our rubbish, they want our love. And you know, that doesn't include, so if you want to leave anything on the site like flowers and things like that, which is fine, why not leave them?